great to be here. It's my first trip to India, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I also want to thank to Philip because his great talk about serious games. I am also going to talk about a serious game, and it's kind of a process how we do this thing. So the name is Following the Traces of Zafer Hakki Eldem in Istanbul. Let me talk about myself a little bit. Sarah just explained really well, but I'm an architect. Graduated from architectural school in Izmir, in Turkey. And then I did my thesis on digital game design on Bahçeşehir University. And my thesis about a VR game, guideline study for designing virtual reality games. So currently I am working as a lecturer, and also I have an architecture company. So giving lectures are, as you see, I am giving lectures on game development with Unreal Engine blueprint system, level design, modeling, in-game lighting design, animation for games. So I'm trying to be, jack of all trades. So here is what we're gonna do. And I also wanna mention about Bug Lab. Thanks to them, I am here. So Bug Lab is actually founded on 2011 in Istanbul at Bahçeşehir University. The aim was just being a center of game development in Turkey. It's just the first in Istanbul and in Turkey. So then they just created boot camps, hackathons, workshops, different focused educations and communications. So it evolved over time. So in over 10 years now, we just became a center of gaming in Turkey and Istanbul. So right now we just hosting like global game jam, and we are doing lots of hackathons. So if you just come to Istanbul, please visit us. So it will be exciting to have you. We just doing lots of workshops and designing lots of things. So that will be great experience for us as well. Right now, as I said, it evolved a lot. So we have the Bug Lab at Center in Bahçeşehir University, but we are also just a school. So I am graduated from Master Bag. We are calling it Master Bag. It's a graduation program. And we have a junior program, which I am giving lectures on right now. We have Bug Kitchen, which we are cooking games there, and it's community center. We have the VR Lab, which is the first one in Turkey. So it's just growing up. We have also a school in Berlin as well. So please just visit them if you're just around. What is the presentation about? So as you know, Istanbul is a multicultural city which has really deep history and great structures, but we are not totally aware of them. So this is our problem actually, and we are just passing all the buildings all the time, and we are not actually seeing them. So the problem is, how can we create some awareness about that? So our focus group actually, yeah, Philip mentioned about that too much, is architectural students at first. So we just created that experience for them, and therefore it's not a game, it is kind of an experience. It's a serious game. This is a university-funded research project, and I am really lucky to be with the team from the research part and the development part. So I was just from the beginning to the end. So let's meet with Sedad Hakki Eldem, who is he. He is actually one of the most important architects in Istanbul in early Republic Day. So he borrowed modernist architectural approach and combined with the Turkey's cultural approach with architecture and created a new style. So we are seeing some of his buildings. It's just Budapest Pavilion. It's just an early building that he has. All the residents and Yellow Thermal Hotel are different buildings of his. We will focus on his three buildings in this experience from his early age and the last age. The first one is Ceylan Apartmanı, the second one is Atatürk Kitaplığı, which is Atatürk Library, and Taşlık Kahvesi is Taşlık Coffee House. Let's see them a little bit. So this is the building actually, Ceylan Apartmanı. It is still exists. You can still visit it in Istanbul. It is, if you've been in Istanbul and if you know the Taksim Square, it's just really close to there. So you can see it's at the corner. It's really highly important and his early masterpiece, let's say. He just built it on 24, so really early. And yeah, it is really located in the center of the Istanbul. You are seeing the old picture here and the new picture at right, and you can see the deformation of some, windows and the shop part at the bottom, just barely understandable right now. You are seeing another picture, and this is really trend in Turkey. I don't know if it's here, but we are just closing balconies. I don't know why. We like to close and just enlarge our space, I guess. So, and this is actually really sad because it was, the left one is the original elevator, and the right one is, you see, it's kind of a cheap modern one. And from the interiors, as you see, these are the old pictures, and I will try to show you in the experience in the new one. The second building is Taşlık Coffee House. It's kind of a, an original Turkish house design. You see, the bottom one you see at the left one is just another building. It's highly affected on the top one, which is the original Taşlık Coffee House, and you are seeing the interiors and the plan here. All of the buildings are actually really in the same place in the center of Istanbul here, and you are seeing the location of there, and it's not exist anymore because we just built a hotel on that site. So sadly, this building is not exist anymore. We just created it in a deformed way. They are using as a restaurant right now, but all the proportions are missing, and it's not just like that anymore. So you are seeing some sketches from Sedad Hakki Eldem from that building, and this is an interior. We tried to create those places actually in the experience. The last one, and one of the last jobs of Sedad Hakki Eldem is Atatürk Library. This building is still exists and just used as a library in today as well, so we are lucky about that. And it was actually masterpiece of the architect. You are seeing the early pictures of that. It was actually planned to be a big systems as with different buildings in that site, but they couldn't make it actually. They only did the library, but other buildings couldn't make it. And we are seeing different angles, different pictures of the building. The one on the right is just the new pictures that we actually took that. So it is still there. You are seeing the left one is the old picture, and the right one is the new picture. So the interior material has changed a lot. The furniture has changed a lot, but they kept actually the bare concrete and the on the chandelier. So they are still exist. You are seeing the new pictures there. And there's a lovely stair detail. I really like that. So the building actually on a hexagon plan, and you can see the hexagon in everywhere, so it's really nice. And let's talk about the game design, the experience design actually, how we start the project. As I said, I was here, I was on the project from the research part, and I was leading the development part as well. So we just thought a lot, and we just discussed a lot, how can we approach this problem? And since this is just for architectural students, we tried to minimize the game element and just wanted to be awareness, wanted to create an awareness of the buildings itself. But it should have some game elements, right? It should not be really boring experience. So we just think about 3 main branch for this experience design. The first one is following the story. The second one is the missions, and the third one are the collectibles. We just created a story. So you are being in a show as an architectural student in this experience. You are starting the experience at the front of the Atatürk Library, and as a normal student, you are late for the class. So the class is dismissed, there's no one around, but you are going inside the buildings, getting some messages from maybe your friend, maybe your lecturer, I don't know. And he says, go to the gallery and see some stuff. And it's just starting like that. You are trying to be a student at that day, and you have some tasks to complete. You need to watch the introduction of Sedad Hakki Eldem slides in that area, and then start your missions. So what are the missions, and how can we actually approach that? Yeah, you are getting, you are seeing the pictures from the experience, by the way, and starting on the library, and over the missions, you are just visiting the Ceylan apartment and Taşlık Cafe House. Since Ceylan apartment and the Atatürk Library exist, we just keep them in the real life. But the Taşlık Cafe House is not exist anymore, so we just created a different approach to that project. We just think about that it can be a dream sequence, and we can just visit it in our dream. So it is, you know, trying to show that this building is not exist anymore. Okay, so yeah, the aim was just creating a natural approach while we're showing these buildings actually. Just really simple missions we have. As I said, there's 3 levels and 3 main missions. In Atatürk Library, you are collecting some blueprints and some drawings because you need to check the measurements of Ceylan apartment. So this is your mission from your lecture actually. And once you completed that, you are free to go to Ceylan apartment. And then you are just doing some measurement and stuff, looking at the building and going inside, experiencing it actually. And then the resident owner says that, hey, I just forgot a book from the library. Can you just deliver the book to library again? So you are going back to library, but now it's just night time, and you are getting sleepy because you did lots of job with measuring this Ceylan apartment. So that's the idea that we found. You are just falling asleep and waking up in the Taşlık Cafe House. You are doing different missions at there and going back to the Atatürk Library again. And this is actually the end of the experience. But like Philip says, I will just, you know, I will say a lot of things from his slides right now, because yeah, we just wanted to experience that after we complete these missions as well. So you are free to roam around, look at the buildings from different sides, just experience them without any obstacles around. So you are free to go. Right now, when you complete the missions, actually, you are able to open a side menu, and from the menu, you can just choose the levels, and you can just teleport from one building to another freely. So it's up to you. Also, another gameplay elements are collectibles. There are 2 collectibles in each level, and they shaped in the buildings, as you see, because we actually wanted to show the player, wanted to show the architectural students the form of the building. It was important for us, and it was actually the essence of architecture. And from these miniature models, the people can just see the buildings, and they just understand how they made. It was really important for us. And if the player can find them in the levels, we were rewarding them with some extra knowledge about the building. So you are just opening some extra images at the gallery, and you are just seeing lots of news about that. And yeah, we actually embedded the gallery in the Atatürk Library as well. So Atatürk Library is kind of working like a hub in the experience. Let's talk about a little bit of development part. So as I said, I was from the beginning to end, and I was leading the development team. It was actually started the one-man army. So I was just doing everything by myself, and then I was lucky enough to have some students in our school, so they helped me a lot of the process. And we together just made this in Unreal Engine. By the way, we were using Unreal Engine in this project, but not the latest one. We were just using Unreal Engine 4.27 because of the limitations on the virtual reality, you know. We just heard great news about Unreal Engine yesterday, if you've been there. So, but sadly, we couldn't use the nanite and the lumen technologies yet, so we need to wait a little bit more about that. For the developments, we just modeled everything and built the scenes in Unreal Engine, and also we designed the interactions and UI. These things are really important for us because it should be handled differently for a VR environment, especially the UI design. So let's talk a little bit about the modeling and building the scenes. We use 3D Max, 3ds Max, and Blender 3D for creating these meshes. If you've been in the gaming industry, 3ds Max is not being used too much because, you know, the limitations of the program. We are just usually using Maya and Blender. But 3ds Max was really useful for us in this case because as an architect, I was just using that program, but also we were able to create the assets easily by using the DataSimit program, which Unreal Engine provides freely. It just handled too much things for us. So we just created the scene in the 3ds Max by just being careful about polygon size, actually. And then by using the DataSimit, which is you are seeing here, it is handling the process automatically. So you don't need to just send all the models separately and create the scenes in Unreal Engine. Again, you are just creating everything in the 3ds Max and sending them over, so they are just being well placed. And also, one of the other useful part of the DataSimit is actually handling the collisions well. So you don't need to worry about the collisions again. And also the light maps. The light maps is kind of a tricky things while you are doing assets for games. And yeah, DataSimit is handling them well as well. Let's talk about the interaction design a little bit. So the key point was it should be simple and easy to understand, easy to execute, and it should be consistent. So we have just a couple of interactions in the game, but everything is just quite simple. So you are just touching the elements and just pushing a button and it's just done. It's not just really complex things. If you played virtual reality games, some games are just really complex and it is not really easy to understand. And it's especially we are just aiming on the architectural students in this experience. They are not gamers like us, so it should be quite simple. Yeah, you are seeing some examples from here. Like I said, from the first level, we are just collecting the books here. And also, when we collect them, how can we store them, right? Because in VR, there is no inventory screen. You cannot just put lots of screen everywhere. And we wanted to make it more natural. So when you just actually grab the item that you can collect, in the other hand, you can actually spawn the back. So when you collide them, you are actually collecting them. It's easy. It's easy to understand that we are just using this type of mechanics in the game. The second example, you are seeing the sad elevator, the modern elevator here, sadly. It's just showing the teleportation mechanic. And we have also, as you see, this colored circles around. So these things are teleporting you to different places of the level. And you are matching the color, you are matching the shape, and you are understanding actually it's working quite easy. We have some notes on the object itself. As you see, it says top floor in this way. It's not visible in this image, but you know, in VR, you cannot use your screen to just put things around. You need to just embed it in the environment. It is really key point. Another example, which is in the third level in the Taşlı Coffee House. As I said, it is like a dream sequence, so we just create the mystical environment there, and you need to follow the bell first to just create the road ahead of you, and slowly just making the building visible. So we are trying to just show the building is not exist, but you are somehow seeing that. Yeah, UI design is my last topic actually. As you see, we just created an embedded UI elements like our phone, our tutorial elements. They are all just spawning in front of you. And when you're done, you can close them. So nothing is just blocking your view. It is quite important in virtual reality design. And like I said, it should be embedded UI. You need to use some environmental elements for that, actually. And yeah, in this case, it is our main element. This is just a phone. And as you see, it's quite big because, you know, it's not really visible in VR because of the low resolution. The important part is do not put lots of information around while you are designing the UI, because it can be really painful for your player, especially in VR environments. And as I said, it should be really big. You are seeing another example from embedded menu here. We just use the security building in front of the Sedad Hakki Eldem's Atatürk library here, and just serving us as a main menu. So you can just select your play, level selections, options, credits, or quit here. We actually use lots of options here to choose the language, to change the resolution and the quality, because we wanted to create that experience for everyone. It should work in Oculus Quest mobile and also on the computer part when you just connect it with Rift or use with Index. Another UI element, when we just try to measure the walls in the second level, we change the color of the wall so you can understand that you are interacting with that wall. And also the image from the gallery when you complete the missions, these miniatures will pop up in that gallery and you are seeing those archives. It's kind of a extra thing. It's not a mandatory for completing the game, but when you complete it, it's kind of a reward. You are seeing the measurements here. Yeah, we had to just create the meters and text on the walls. And also you are seeing our miniature at the left part. So if you just looking around and if you are collecting things, you are getting rewarded. And yeah, lastly, some images from buildings. As you see, we just try to be really careful about proportions, and use lots of site visiting, lots of researches about finding the right blueprints, because since these are just old buildings, there is no digital blueprints around. We need to just go to the libraries and find those blueprints, and we try to make them as as you see in real life. From different, and this is from the night scene, when you just go back to the library. And this is from Ceylan apartment. One thing to note, it is not visible here actually. Yeah, it is visible. So we actually made the most efforts on the buildings itself, not the environment at all, because the buildings are important for us, not the entire world. And it can actually create lots of CPU and GPU load to computers for VR. So there was some limitations. We made them as low poly as possible, but the important part and buildings are, detailed. You can see. But still you are getting the feeling of the environment. It is just Taksim Square and the Gezi Parkı, Park Gezi. You are seeing these images on the backgrounds. And here in the interior of the Ceylan apartment, you see in the old pictures, and people are using it like this right now. And this is at the top floor. The resident is not using it in this furnitures right now. We just created from scratch, but it is giving the idea how the building used. From Taşlık Coffee House, as you see. And the interior, I showed you the old pictures, so we tried to match the feeling of that. Yep, that's all. Thank you for listening. I will be on the in the booth, so you can play the experience, give me some feedbacks. This is still an ongoing project, so we are still iterating things. Your feedbacks will be really appreciated. If you just test the game, I will just send you a questionnaire, so you can just help me with that. Yeah, thank you. You can find me at booth number 02. Just waiting you. Okay, if you have some questions, I can get.
Thank you so much, Zafer. Thank you. Yeah, I want to go to Istanbul immediately, but that's not possible. Any questions before I do have questions, but I would like to give you all a chance.
So this is an experience you have perhaps in a VR lab or at your booth. Is there any thought on embedding this experience at the actual physical locations of the library, of the apartments, of allowing people to explore like virtual as well as the physical environment?
It is possible, actually. We can create some events like that when you experience it and afterwards you are visiting the real places. But sadly, we cannot visit the Taşlık Coffee House because it's not exist anymore. But still, you can steal those buildings, and after the experience, you can go visit them. So this is actually one of the outcomes that we hope for. So people just wandered around those buildings and visit them because they are still there, the two of them at least. So you can go, actually the Atatürk Library is a public space, so you can go and just look at there. And also just look at the Ceylan apartment from outside at least. So this was the outcome actually. Yeah, thank you. Any other question?
Thank you for that question. Anyone else? Any questions on? Okay, I just had one. So this game that you're working on is for students, you mentioned, right?
Sorry?
Is it for architecture students?
Yeah, it is for architecture students.
So, and that also connects to the previous session when we are making serious games or games for purpose or games for learning. How in this space is there a space to analyze or measure what your students are learning, or how are they applying it in their spaces in their courses? Is that something that you have an intention when you're developing the game, or not really?
It's not actually. It is just creating the awareness of the buildings itself. We just didn't want to make them as homework or the assignments. But one of the reasons is just experiencing the buildings and see the scale. So when you are inside of the buildings, you are understanding them better, because one of the problems of architectural students, they cannot actually measure the spaces. They are making them way bigger or way small. So when you experience them in VR, it is actually makes more sense. So the lecturers can use this game in their lectures. So they can show the students how the actual home size environment or actual public space environment, public space environment. So that game or that experience can have different purposes than just creating awareness of the spaces.
Yeah, that's amazing for buildings that don't exist. I mean, that's really crazy.
Yeah, it was a little bit tough, but
Yeah, time traveling.
yeah.
Yeah. If there are any other questions, or we can wrap this one up then. So yeah, thank you so much, Zafer.